For someone that knows nothing about late onset Tay Sachs, I don't think they can understand how constant and progressive and the thought that has to go into everything that you do, from getting up to sitting down to dropping something or tripping and not being able to stand up. My name is Zoe. I live in Santa Barbara, California, and I have late onset Tay Sachs, also known as LOTS. I think I always sort of found freedom in water that I didn't find in land, and I think that was one of the early signs of late onset Tay Sachs for me, even though I didn't really realize it at the time. Struggling to get out of pools or sort of adjusting how I got out or diving off the blocks was always a little bit of a challenge. When I met my mom in England, I was going up the stairs at my grandmother's house, and she noticed that I was sort of pulling myself up the stairs in sort of an unusual manner, and she really noticed that something wasn't right inside of me, and noticing that my mobility had changed and was changing. Really, it was the weakness, getting up out of chairs from my desk at school, stepping off curbs or stepping onto curbs, mainly getting out of seated positions and things like that was sort of the earliest signs that I could really notice where I was experiencing weakness. I lost a job after not being able to stand up from the toilet. They brought me in and asked to talk about the elephant in the room. They didn't really offer any solutions or ways to help me on location of the job. They just sort of wanted to terminate it. I first saw an orthopedic doctor. He then referred me to some physical therapy. I did that, but it didn't make much of a change. I then saw a neurologist, and he then started on testing. I was misdiagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy. The neurologist in Santa Barbara then sent me to UCLA for a whole battery of tests, from spinal taps and blood tests, listening to the muscles, everything coming back negative, but a sign of something clearly being there. I went to Stanford. He did one exam and did one blood test and concluded that I had late onset Tay Sachs. It was probably a 3-year journey in figuring out what disease I had. I think it was a big shock to the whole family, from my parents to grandparents, and knowing this had silently been passed down from generation to generation and figuring out where it came from. My oldest sister, the day I was diagnosed, she said, "I have that too." And we didn't know much about the disease at that time, so we sort of said, "Oh, that's not possible." And then a year later, she got all of her tests done, and it turned out she also had late onset Tay Sachs. I think everyone in the family should be tested, even though I have one sister who has been reluctant to get tested. Not many doctors have heard of Tay Sachs or really know what to do with it. It's a self-journey in managing and seeing what I need and what adapts. Since getting married last year, my husband and I then talked about having children, and that it was important to us to be able to have kids, and having his full genetic screening done and enzyme testing done and seeing that there weren't any low levels there, then that made us confident in moving forward and having kids. My relationship to the disease is knowing it and having the answer is really the gift. I think having a healthy lifestyle and eating well and finding physical activities that you can do and participate in, and being with family and friends and finding those times, even though sometimes you can't always participate in what's going on. I think you have to stay positive in your outlook on life, knowing that there are people and doctors and researchers and drug companies that want to find a cure or a treatment for the disease.